Every time we have this meeting, we do the roll call, and honestly, it's really weird that, everybody sees everyone here, so how do you want to do that so it's not so strange? We're all here.
That's fine. I think in terms of the audio record, it would only be helpful to say if someone is not here, that council, whoever is excused.
That's a good idea. I think we do that in Central Utah, instead of everyone going through here, we just, if anyone's missing, we just mention that.
Yeah.
Would that be okay for the minutes?
Yeah.
Is that okay with everyone? That took longer than to ask if everyone was here this time, but it'll save us a little time in the future. And it doesn't look so weird, right? Anyway, thanks for y'all being here. We do have a full quorum tonight. Just want to mention that this meeting is a regularly scheduled meeting and it's been posted according to open laws. To begin, we'll ask Lee if she would give us an opening prayer, and then if you would all follow me in the pledge of allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity that we have to live in this wonderful community and to meet together tonight to decide the forward direction of our city. Please bless and be with the council this evening as they make decisions for the betterment of our community, that they will be guided and led. Please watch over the leaders of our country and those in our community. Please keep everyone safe and healthy and well. And we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So, first item is the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any amendments or corrections that need to be made to those minutes? Seeing none, would entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
We have a motion by Councilman Roosevelt and a second by Councilman Allen. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion passes. We have a public comment period at this time, up to 15 minutes. Any individual can take up to 3 minutes to address the council. If you do so, please stand and state your name at the podium. Is there anyone here that would like to take that opportunity tonight? Seeing none, we'll move forward with our meeting. First appointment we have tonight, Terry Hansen, are you here with us? Okay, would you go ahead and
Terry's here.
Yeah.
She asked me to speak.
Sure, absolutely.
She brought her Mylar in. We should have the Mylar coming up here and I can show you what she's done. She lives in Chrisville out by Stonegate. Okay, there it comes. Right there. So this is her lot right here. She owns both of these lots, 3A and 3B. She's taken this much off of 3B and she would like to combine it with 3A. This would be the new lot line, leaving 1 full acre out in that subdivision. It went through zoning, fine. We don't have any problems with it. And so we're just here to get council approval for that.
where's that at again?
It's Chrisville, very front of Stonegate.
Oh, okay.
The road that comes into Stonegate is actually right here. She has the first lot and the second lot.
Okay.
She's looking at future maybe selling this to family members right here. She's left 1 full acre.
Aren't most of the other lots in Stonegate further south, they're all 1 acre as well, aren't they?
Correct. It's an R1 zone, so we prefer 1 full acre.
Okay.
In there.
Are there any questions from the council?
Any issues you perceive?
No, sir. No, sir. It went through zoning fine. She's done everything we asked. We left 1 full acre. It should be fine.
Any others?
I move we approve them. The zoning's approved and he's good with it. Argument we approve.
Okay. Second by Councilman White, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
You just
Do you have the magic pen?
And then you just need to get it recorded. When this is all done, you just need to get it recorded. Over County.
that was quick. Don't be intimidated.
You only like the
You probably have better handwriting than I do.
No, I'm gonna take that with me.
Yes, ma'am. Now you just take that to the recorder's office. Record it and done for you. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for coming. All right. We have a workman / Christie property easement discussion. Who will be?
I'm gonna start it, and I've asked Troy, who's the surveyor, to come in and tell you what the city has done in the past.
Troy, are you still at Forex?
Ooh, that's where we're.
Oh, sorry.
He used to be Horace. If you didn't know, Johnson knows. All right. Anyway, children know.
Okay.
He's been the surveyor on this project, and it's kind of held up in zoning, but there's some issues that I want to talk to council about. This was the existing lot right here. They wanted to break this section out, which this is an R16, which has got plenty of property. Now, the issue I want to talk about tonight is at the front of the property here, from the back of curb to property line, there's 20 feet. We need 4 feet for sidewalk, 1 foot for property line, and then we have a 15-foot zone that the city owns that are we gonna maintain and everything else. So in the past, actually, if we go further, I've got a thing that shows this road. This is a residential road. It's already asphalted, it's got curb there. When somebody builds, they'll put in sidewalk. So I'm of the opinion that the city should divest themselves of this 15 feet, put it to the property owner. That way they maintain it, they pay taxes on it, because city property, we don't pay taxes. We don't have anybody asking us on maintaining. Now, in the past, I talked to Troy, I think this shows here 80 feet now. It was 100 feet at one time.
What street is that being?
It is 100 west, it's 100 west. It actually, the hospital, if you come off, or you go through the street light, hit the 4-way, come across here, and you go up this road and then turn, it goes over to the hospital parking area. So I don't ever see this road being anything more than a residential. So it's just, I would like council to think about this 15 feet right here, possibly by ordinance. I mean, it has to be, I'm gonna let Troy talk to that. Turning that over to the property owner so we can tax it and we don't have to take care of it.
So where I'm looking right now, the road to the south looks like it's obviously wider. What is the width of the road to the north, that road right there across from the property split?
32 feet,
32 feet?
32 feet of asphalt.
And what's the one to the south?
And it's going to be closer to 50, I believe.
Yeah, this is more of a corridor. This is a residential road.
Yeah.
Right here. And actually, I have the
Is it a
road.
through road? If I'm thinking right, it's not a
It's
through
not,
road.
it just turns and I don't see it going.
Goes up in 90s to the east.
Supposed to go
west
west
there. It goes over to a street that you guys have vacated to the hospital, I believe.
Right, okay.
So I actually have I think the road there too, showing a residential road.
Can you zoom in on that area a little bit? Thank you.
And in that, when Troy did it, there would be a 5-foot utility easement from property line. We'd have 5 feet for sidewalk and property, and then a 5-foot utility, that's for utility use, but the owner would own that 5 feet.
So even the lots above where there's two mobile, well, they're kind of those two trailers there, that grass area is actually owned technically by Roosevelt City, and we would deed that because it's 15 feet on each side of the main road, right?
Well, the only property I'm talking about right now is this right here, not that this.
Well, I was just wondering, we may as well while we're at it. Is what I'm
The
thinking.
problem, Mayor, the problem exists on both sides of that street, the
Yeah.
same distance.
We have the same issue over by Constitution Park. There's an intersection there, same thing. On the east side of the road, it was wide. On the west side of the road, when they built that subdivision in there, they only went 5 feet or whatever it was. And we had the exact same discussion where we deeded back to the property owner that because they'd already put fences in or they'd already landscaped it to the degree. It looks like we're having the same issue. People have landscaped that area and everything else, so.
So Troy can talk to it about how it's been done. I think he has an illustration. here.
There's a, I don't know if you keep scrolling there, I don't know, I sent it to Dean earlier.
It should be on there, the ordinance where they, release some land.
That is the, so this one I found real quick, we're doing another survey. But that is, what I believe you guys would have to do what Dean's asking is to, make an ordinance, giving up that 15 feet essentially on both sides of the, whatever you decide, but I would suggest cleaning it up. But, talking to the recorder's office today about this, in the past, something like this has passed in Roosevelt City, and the adjacent landowner did not know they owned the property. Went up to tax sale. So, their suggestion is pass an ordinance, create a plat to show what you're doing, and record it, and then essentially the landowner will have to either make a letter or a deed deeding that property.
Claim deed is what they'll have to do, and that, what would be best is if we ran this through planning and zoning, and had a public hearing, especially for those homeowners, so that there isn't anybody that's in a letter and explaining everything that's going on. So, did this go through planning and zoning already?
It went through zoning, we tabled it for now, there was a shed issue on the property that we wanted cleaned up, and then Troy brought this to my attention. And that's why I decided it's a good time to bring it up to city, because they've got to clean up the other issues. If we got this taken through, then it could be included in the survey, rather than not having to come back in time and having a lot line adjustment, and have it included in. So at the moment, the piece of property is tabled, while other issues are taken care of, and that's why I brought this forward to council to consider.
So the way I see that it would work the best is if we would probably need a decision with council tonight if we're going to go ahead and release that property. Then at that point, it would go to planning and zoning with a public hearing. We would invite all the property owners to that, and send out the mailings with what's going on, so that even if they don't come, they still get something certified mail that's going to take place. In the meantime, we can work out what we need to do as far as creating an ordinance. I would imagine that ordinance may have to go through planning and zoning, so we can do that at the same time in that meeting, and then it would come to us for final approval. So I guess we just need a motion tonight for go ahead, Dean.
Before we do the motion, I have a question for Troy, because I think to do this, we have to create a plan. We have to
That's what the recorder's office would rather see is, I mean, the paper does some of it, but I think it makes more sense to the landowners to say, hey, this is the landowner you're talking to, this is, what you're getting.
Because you'll need descriptions for every single little strip of property, because when you write the deed, they're gonna have to have the descriptions.
And that's the part I'm not clear on how it happens, because the original lot owners would have owned the lot 3 of block 6 5D. Now they own that, and then it says also starting at this corner, west 20 feet down. That's kind of what it is. So you can do it that way, or we can create a new description for the whole lot. they can quick claim it themselves and then, so either we can create it or they can create it over at the county. But still,
Yeah, Dustin, go ahead.
If this is given to them, what do they have to do for it to be considered the same lot that they currently own, so they don't have two separate tax?
They'd have to do a quit claim deed, and then, make that one lot, so they have to get it.
They would have to come through planning and zoning and request us to do a zone or
no, as
a.
long as your ordinance passes, then the property is no longer yours. Then they quit claim to themselves, from themselves to themselves, and add that additional in, and then that gets recorded, and then that's.
Then it
Could
becomes
that be
part of
considered a lot line adjustment?
Well, it would be a lot line
Is that
adjustment.
something that we decided that you can do, or the planning and zoning can do without?
And they haven't done this at this time. It was something that works when we had change of management. So
That's right,
something
because we were
that
looking
they-
at, taking a look at that ordinance, and if it was just a lot line adjustment and not considered a subdivision, that's something that didn't have to go through the full process, either you or the planning zoning could do. I don't think we changed that yet, but did we?
My only thought is make it so they don't have to go through a long process.
So when you're going through the subdivision, or redoing this, can you create the lot line how it should be, and then just have that recorded? You'd have to have every single one of those property owners' signature on that plat.
If they did the whole flat.
If I did the whole
You
thing.
could do it the way you're saying, Dustin, if the plat was drawn with that piece of, that strip already incorporated with that lot, so that it is just one lot, and then every single property owner would have inside that.
My only issue is these two lots are owned by a corporation.
The hospital. Oh, no,
Well, this used to be hospitals, but now I can't remember whose it is. You zoom in right there, it'll tell you.
They had a daycare there for a while.
But that
The biggest thing is, I think,
Knight Investment Holdings, I don't know who that is or where that is.
that's Mike Knight,
Local?
Michael Knight, yeah, he lives on the golf course, he's a dentist.
Okay.
And he owns,
both of that one and the building and the lot that the building sits under the road.
that's where he had his dentist practice, I think he's still.
well, actually Brad Knight had a daycare there.
Oh, so it's not the Knight
I
that
think
I'm
it's Brad that owns it.
Okay,
And, so the thing I was gonna point out, the way it sounds to me though, we would have an expense of having somebody create a plat showing that 15 feet throughout. And then people would quick claim off of that. So it would be an expense to the city probably to have that plat created.
Yes,
maybe we just advise the property owners, have them come in and discuss this with them and talk about, and I guess we would, I don't know, go ahead, Don.
I'm just curious what the cost to the homeowner would be if they have to file this claim or anything. Is there going to be cost to them? Are they going to be added taxes because the property's now a little bigger?
Well, it would add to their tax base. If they did a lot line adjustment, as JR said, and came into zoning, it would be a $75 fee plus the survey to incorporate it in their properties.
What if they didn't want it? Is that an option?
They wouldn't have to take it, but then it would be kind of a no man's land.
that'd be amazing.
Might be a worse situation. So I was kind of just saying this piece of property here rather than inclusive through the whole block. But JR has a good point. If we're gonna do it, we do it throughout. But it was just, this piece of property was the only one that I was interested at this time, because how they were doing this, it would, if it was passed through ordinance before he completed, come into zoning, then it could only take one block.
Have we talked to the homeowners about this? Or have you talked to them?
The workmen's and the Frisbees are aware of it. The other people are not.
Okay.
So,
But I believe, everybody believes they own the property to the, as, if you go back to the image, the people on the west side of that, they're all occupying it. It might be a shock to them to say that you don't own it.
So I think we need to have a meeting with them then, right?
yeah, and that's why I said the public hearing, advising them what we plan on doing. one thing I think would be helpful, because we had one, the one that you brought up, similar to this, was quite a while ago. The one I was talking about up there by Constitution Park was more recent.
Okay.
Maybe we can go back to those minutes and see what we did there and how we helped those individuals end up with that piece of property, and then follow a similar pattern. That way we're being fair to everyone. I can't remember if we have been paid for some of those costs or what, but we can go back to those minutes, and in the meantime, I think are you drawing the map as the engineer or
As the surveyor.
surveyor? So maybe if you could get the map ready so we could get a mailer sent out. In the meantime, we can find out what we did last time and go that route. Grant, do you have anything to add to that?
I was just gonna say, I think there's an easier way to do it than going through ordinance changes. I was just gonna recommend that you table it and we talk about it at your next meeting after a chance to look at some of the other options.
Okay. In the meantime, I think he could probably get the plot together and get ready to send a mailer out. We wouldn't send it yet, but we could get that far along in the process, and then we could probably have an answer pretty quick.
What's the advantage or disadvantage to either the citizens or the city by changing what it already is? What are we doing? What are we trying to achieve by doing that?
Well, trying to get the city not to have to be responsible for that 15 feet. If the homeowner didn't want to do anything, then the city would have to go clean the weeds and take care of it. I think that's all we're trying to do.
Well, that people do ask, if you go over on State Street, case in point, we had the people had the tree fall over, hit the house. Well, that particular strip between it and the sidewalk was actually theirs, and they thought the city owned it. And so it was kind of a surprise to them that their tree fell on their house. But they were trying to, the city, so we're just trying to kind of prevent this, something in the future, just kind of being proactive and just bringing it to your attention as something to look at.
To answer your question, Councilman, it doesn't mean anything to the landowner. It's, in my opinion, it's the city's benefit. It's not gonna be a whole lot of tax revenue, but it's going to be less maintenance and tax revenue that the city gets. And this is probably, I don't know, there's not very many blocks in this city that don't have this happen. Roosevelt City is, most of it's like that, where it's, you guys have.
State Street is like that because I had, or was.
State Street, 200 West, 100 West, up where Bishop, where he lives, that's up there, where Brent Huber used to live, around that area. That's that same way, Constitution Park. I mean, it's everywhere.
And when Troy and I talked about this property, he brought this to my attention. And I thought it was a good point to bring to council.
It's not, it's a surveyor's nightmare if you guys were to just do the one. It would cause.
It's just kicking the can down the road anyway.
So, and there's no reason to do this side without doing this side. You might as well solve the whole problem. And if they don't want it, I don't know what the attorney's opinion would be for that, so.
Can't force it on them.
And I like the idea of tabling it, see what Grant comes up with, and then we can continue the conversation.
It'll give us some time to, it's good that we know about it. It'll give us some time to do a little research, see what we've done in the past, and then what other options we have.
Based on the satellite image, it looks like they're already kind of using it anyway, right?
The people on the west of the block are, yes, but, I mean, you can see right here, this is the existing fence line. That's what everybody's kind of throwing off. So in theory, that property, half of that shed's on your guys' property, all sorts of.
And right now, it's just full of weeds.
Yep. And barking dogs, but other than that. I do have one question that, where I do have a client, if you are going to table it, is there any estimated time that I could tell them that this is gonna be resolved?
We'll have our next meeting the third week in December. The 15th.
So then theoretically, planning and zoning would take first week, or the first time in January, so the best case is they're able to divide the property in February.
I think before it went to zoning, I would like to hear Grant.
Well, I think we could address those concerns in zoning, because I think we're agreeable to to moving forward as far as, let's go ahead and get the ball rolling. We can get with Grant on our Tuesday meetings and things like that and get some answers and have those answers to planning by the next planning and zoning meeting. We could probably, you think we'd be prepared to have a public hearing? So,
Well, I don't know that we're gonna have to have one.
We won't have-
Options.
yeah, because we're not changing the ordinance. I guess we won't have to advertise for a public hearing, but at least having a public comment, I guess. But do we,
When's the next finance zoning meeting?
Second of December, which I think this is, I personally would like to have what Grant comes up with. As far as this particular lot, Troy can continue, if they get the other issues worked out, they can continue with theirs. And then at whatever time we come up with this, put 15-foot easement, then they can address that there with a quick claim deed or whatever is deemed necessary at that time. And if it wasn't holding up, it would just be easier if they could include everything in this, and that's what we talked about.
And I think they would be agreeable with that, but I just need to let them know, worst case, you're looking late January, early February.
yeah,
And,
I think that's reasonable.
But the guy that's buying it lives in Pennsylvania, so they have their own problem.
Yeah, they got to be counting votes right now.
Well, it just, as far as I'm concerned, I'd just like to see the burden not placed on the people if we do decide to do it. And tell them that this is your property, this is what you need to pay to have it surveyed, this is what you need, you know what I mean? To me, that's why we need to have it.
Well, if I may, if you were to take what do you got, 8 lot owners there and divide up that thing, you approach me as a landowner and say you can have 15 feet for $200-300.
Right.
Who in their right mind buying it?
And I think that's what we did similar to the Constitution Park, and they were all for. I mean, it wasn't very expensive to them. The city did pack most
So
of it.
there is a cost to get the thing done, but that's all they pay.
Yeah, it was pretty cheap. for
But
them, and they were all
for
excited.
each individual lot owner to go to get a property survey, at least our going rate is more than that. I know other surveyors are super busy too. So.
Right, I think it would be fairly cost effective for them.
And then I don't, like I say, I don't know if they refused it, that would be, that's all.
Okay.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. So I don't know that we need a motion necessarily. We'll just wait and, but the ball is rolling. We'll follow up with that. We'll get going on that.
Sounds good.
Thank you. JUB Engineers Airport Pavement Preservation Project. Who would be in that discussion for us? Kirby?
I can talk. or-
Yeah, we both can if you'd like.
Either way.
I believe they're just asking that, is everything completed and I know that some of you went out there on a tour and the striping was left to be done and it's all completed. That was what they're looking for. Is that not correct, right?
That's correct.
So just
I know they used a little bit different, kind of a new product to the aprons and the pavement out there. How did it look? How did it turn out?
I feel like it turned out real well.
really well.
Probably the last, but
I think it looks good. Really good.
Vince, you've probably been out there.
Yeah, I thought it looked really good.
Perfect. Well, we appreciate JUB working with us. I mean, they've done a phenomenal job out there.
They really have. It's,
And they've been a good partner to have with that, so. That sounds good. It looks like there's some money attached to that. I just can only see $4,358
that's what the project
cost was.
cost was. Just the breakdown and.
Gotcha. Now, did that come out of that, was that part of that same grant money that we have to do the redevelopment of the runway and then the taxiway? Or is it just-
yeah, same money.
Okay, so it came out of the same funds? So just so everybody knows that, that was like a $9 million grant, federal grant that we got from the FAA. Was it 9 or 7? $9 million grant, so, it didn't cost Roosevelt City hardly a thing. And this is just a final touches on that project, so. Anyway, good project. Airport board appointments, so that's mine. We had that discussion about a month ago, a little over a month ago. And we realized that, one of the members, Clyde, that we wanted to appoint was not a city resident. But he is a city employee, and we felt, we had a rule in our resolution that we had to have a certain amount of residents to non-residents. And we wanted to make sure that we had a favorable amount of residents to non-residents on that board. And I overlooked Clyde being a non-resident, although he's a city employee. And so we decided to change that resolution at our last meeting to treat an employee of Roosevelt City or a resident the same as it pertains to that committee. And so we made that change. And so tonight, we've already appointed 5 persons to that. Myself, Vince, Sean Denver, Colton Roberts, and Chris Oakes. And tonight I would present to the council that we appoint Clyde Stansfield and Hunter Webb to that airport board as well. Any thoughts or comments?
I motion we approve it.
I'll second.
A motion by Councilman Riley and a second by Councilman Busenbark. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Vince, maybe we can get together and plan a day. We were gonna do that, but I'm glad we waited to get these other members on, maybe early January or early December, and get working on that, so. Perfect, thank you. Chief? Wait, just recycle, sorry about that. We have a representative from Recycle. I'm sorry for making you come back again. We were just
No,
gonna
no
go
worries.
ahead and move forward, but appreciate you being here.
No, happy to be here to answer any questions you guys have. It's not too bad of a drive, and it's only like 2 hours. So
Can you give us your name?
Yeah, I'm Ryan Smith, and I'm the CEO.
Thanks for being here. So we had your representative come to one of our meetings.
Yep.
And kind of talk to us again about what you're doing. One of the questions that we had and concerns that we had was, whether or not there was a container to put recyclables in. We also had to get with the county and make sure that we weren't going to be in trouble with the county as far as some contracts or some ordinances that they have in place that require unincorporated areas of Duchesne County to take all the refuse to Blue Bench landfill. But at a meeting, when was that, Scott? 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, probably 2 weeks ago.
Approximately 2 weeks ago, we visited with the county about that. We did learn that in incorporated areas, that does not apply, and Roosevelt is incorporated. So we would not be in default on that. And then we also wanted to check our contract with K&K Sanitation. And I believe that we had recyclables separated out of that contract just in case there was an opportunity for that to happen.
And we reviewed that contract as well and came to the same conclusion.
Grant, do you see any legal problems or issues with either of those two?
I don't.
So I guess is there any comments, questions? I mean, it looks like he has a presentation.
No, this is the presentation from last time.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor? We've heard it before. I think we've. Yeah, that'd be fine. Do you want to give us any additional information, anything that I think would be important to know or anything?
Yeah, I may, I don't know if it'll be new information, but I am curious more than anything as to what the council's intention is for how to proceed, because we work with a lot of different cities and in a lot of different ways. It just really depends on, what the city prefers. And so an example is Vernal. We have a city contract with Vernal, right? Where we have the same with Nephi. And where we have, official city contract, the billing is done through the city. They want to handle that. That's cool with us. Then we have other cities where we work directly with the city, closely with the city, where the city has said, hey, we want you guys to be able to do this, but we want to be more hands-off, and you guys can, do your thing, and if someone calls us, we'll let them know you exist. And then there's kind of that middle ground where the city says, yeah, we don't want to be super involved, we want to be hands-off, but we do want to, help get the word out, that it's, to the city's benefit to fill up the landfill slower, and it's to the city's benefit to have their citizens want recycling. So we want to, get the word out, and we'll send notice in the utility bill, which we have Mapleton, Utah did that. We have several cities in Texas, and probably a couple of cities in Utah do that. So our question would really be kind of what's the right way to proceed, because we're ready to go. Frankly, Vernal was the first. We're in about 60 cities now, and Roosevelt was the second city that we looked at after Vernal. It's taken a minute for us to get here, but I'm really excited for the chance to actually make recycling happen here. So I told Derek I had to come because I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm so excited.
Well, we appreciate you coming, and I appreciate you giving us the examples of what other cities do. I have my own personal opinion, but I can voice that here in just a second. What about the council? What are your thoughts on our relationship with Recyclops, and how do we want to proceed with that? Or do you want me to start with my opinion?
Well, let me add one thing. Just I don't know if this will. What we found is that when residents want to recycle, the first place they turn is to the city. And so we really like in whatever capacity, we like to work close with cities because of that. Because that's like the default is someone new moves in from somewhere else. They call the city to set up their, utilities and having at the very least having like, oh yeah, you can do recycling here, goes a long way. And so we really like having that relationship because it's kind of the go-to. And so that's kind of our opinion, although we make it work either way. So we're kind of indifferent, but if I had to pick my poison, it would be working closer with the city. It's not pick my poison, pick my pleasure. Not poison.
What do you think from the council?
I think embracing something like this as a city that doesn't cost us anything, but providing support as far as like where people pay their water bills, have some flyers that they could pick up when they come in to sign up, provide the information, semi-annually in the bill, saying, hey, if you aren't already recycling or whatever, and the materials provided by them, it kind of shows the city supports recycling. You can't look bad recycling. I mean, I think it's a good move.
Any other thoughts?
I'm in favor of helping out however we can, because it is a service to our citizens, it benefits the city. So I would say I don't think we want to do the billing and stuff. I think it gives you more of the support and provide the information. That's kind of what I was thinking.
That's good. That's good by us. We've got the billing figured out. It's easier on me actually if we do the billing. But
any other comments? The only comment that I would have is I don't disagree with what's been said. I like that it's an option. It would be an option for our citizens. I would want to make sure that for me, it's kind of a very thin line. And Grant, maybe you can talk to this a little bit, but I just want to make sure that where it is looked at, instead of having a contract with you, like we have a contract with K&K, I view Recyclops as a business that's just doing business in Roosevelt City. And so how do we promote an entity like that without favoritism to another business that may want the same benefits of advertisement or something like that? That would be my only concern whatsoever. I like the idea. I like the option. I just want to make sure that what we do for one, we're able to do for others and not overstep those bounds.
I think the Recyclops would be aware. They're the only one that has approached us so far as I know. If anybody else did approach, they'd probably just do the exact same thing. So if there's something on the billing statements or something for Recyclops, if there was another entity who wanted to do the same thing, they'd both go on.
Okay, so we kind of categorize it with recycling and then, okay, that sounds good.
And that's what we've seen. So we have had cities that they put it on like the city website, and it's like recycling resources, and we're listed with another company there. And so that's kind of, of course, and that's.
So we're not, and then the only other question, so would we put out mailers in the bills or, and what's the cost of that? You know what I'm saying? Those types of things. Or would we just advertise on our website and Facebook or something like that? Yeah, go ahead.
So I think what would be fair in this situation would be for Recyclops to put together the flyers, bring them to the city, just as a partner, because it's a community service, because it's a kind of one of those things that most cities do already throughout the Wasatch Front. It seems like it's a service to the community, and it's something that our citizens want. And so I don't think it's a big deal to just throw it in the bill free of charge, at least that first time. And if they want to promote more advertising, maybe give them the opportunity to do it for a cost.
That sounds.
Do we have a normal fee that we charge for somebody to put advertising in a water bill? Is that something we've done before?
Not for other companies, for, information purposes, but not to advertise companies.
And we've had things before, they've done very much as kind of a PSA, a public service announcement, wanted to let you know that this is an option in your city. And, you kind of do it in a, more of a PSA format than a ad format to other.
We just had that come out on our most recent water bill with the sewer service. The sewer insurance program. Was that done like a PSA?
You know how many phone calls I got on that?
I hope you, if you get me from the recycling, that they're praising your name.
That was part of an agreement contract that we signed, and we have to do so many of them.
And so we signed a contract with them. And I was free to the city, but something that it was agreed to do something for them.
Do we have any more questions? Okay. Let's give, Brett, did you want to take just a second?
I didn't come up here to make any comments, Mayor. But I appreciate Mr. Martin welcoming my presence here into the situation. I definitely have some emotion, but it's. I kind of feel like, when our bid proposal was sent out, we went over that today, and our bid proposal was that, we had to have painted trucks. We had to have a broom and a dustpan on our trucks. We had to have properly vehicles to do the job in an automated form fashion. And I haven't been in on the discussion. Briefly watched the minutes today. There's definitely a part of me that feels like a pickup and a trailer doesn't really fit those qualifications. We've got millions of dollars invested into what we do, and I feel like we've done a pretty good job of doing what we do. And like I said, as far as the city having anything to do with it, to me, I'm appalled that the city would endorse it in any way, shape, or form as far as paying for something to be put out there. To me, I agree with Brother Claiborne's comments as far as not in a private business sector. Or I don't know the exact word that he used, but I definitely agree. I think a business should be able to put something into the water bill that says, hey, that's just my opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of P&K. I realize some of my comments are, but it is what it is. It's kind of, we've the council before, 2 or 3 different occasions, didn't want anything to do with it. It's kind of weird to me that it keeps being brought up when local council members. It's really getting
Well, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, financial implications, so if they're making the trash cans lighter and we're putting less plastic into the landfill, do you get paid less money for the tonnage that you carry to the landfill? Or will your job be easier because there'll be less tonnage, but you're still getting the same amount of cans that are out? It's not gonna reduce the amount of cans.
One can look at it that way. Certainly.
What would your concern be?
My concern is the feedback that I've got from the other Bernal haulers as far as, you know, if Recyclops is providing a can, you know, that is one thing. That was one thing that kind of denounced at the last time, was the fact that we were just supposed to put it in a bag or something on the sidewalk and they would be around to get it. The can thing, I definitely think that is a necessity. Some people refer to it as reinventing the wheel. We did that 25 years ago where we put bags and alongside the curb and it was a mess. Rocks, everything else. From that perspective, sure. We have a contract that states that we'll be paid X amount for this can and this can and this can and this can, and you know, that it really would not interfere with that side of it. We would still be theoretically being paid for maybe a service that we weren't providing, if you wanted to look at it that way. But so overall, there's nothing wrong with the idea of it. I think most people probably would be in favor of it. Like I say, there's a lot of mixed emotions and feelings about it. And to me, from my perspective, why would I pay more? Why would I pay more? When I'm already getting a service, why would I pay more?
And that's the good thing. It's to each individual homeowner to decide.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that's why I brought up the point of, you know, do we charge other businesses to mail the flyers, those types of things? Because really, the difference between you and Recyclops, where you have a contract, I mean, you're guaranteed, you know, this, that, and the other, and then there's certain requirements on the other end. I look at Recyclops as just a private business providing a service. Now, we technically, in all honesty, and Grant, you can help me with this and make sure I don't say anything I shouldn't, but I don't think, technically, there's nothing illegal about the service or the product that they provide. I don't see how we could actually eliminate them from coming and getting a business license and performing that anyway. As far as how involved the city gets with Recyclops or advertising and partnering, that's the only place where I'm a little bit like, okay, we got to be a little bit careful on this and make sure that we don't set a precedence that we're not willing to do for everyone. And that's why the questions that I brought up, I personally do like choice and the ability for somebody to do that if they want. I really don't know how many would pay extra to have that done.
It's really no concern of really any one of ours, because like you say, it is a personal choice.
Yeah.
And that's.
So I think my only comment was we just need to be very careful where there's not a contract, there's not certain expectations. We already have set one expectation, and that is obviously in our city, there's an ordinance that any refuse or anything like that has to be put in the can. So it would be the responsibility of the homeowner to purchase that can to have that service. What is it, a $30 charge?
Yeah, $30 sign up charge that goes with that.
One thing that I would ask, if the city does approve for it, and it's not anything, but it's training the residents not to put that residential can right beside my residential can, and it being a problem.
And we definitely, if, you know, we're able to proceed, we'd want to work closely with you to make sure that we're not causing any trouble, you know, for each other at all, and to do anything that we can to make your life easier, because the hope is that it's good for everyone, that it, you know, lowers your tip fees at the landfill and makes your trucks fill up a little less fast, and it's good for the residents.
And what color are your cans?
Yellow.
yellow. I still think it'd be pretty.
Hey, black and
Use
gold.
those.
There you go.
So, well, Brett, we really appreciate your comments. I know your concerns.
Like I said, I didn't really come here to be a voice for K&K tonight. I was kind of turning into that a little bit. I just wanted to hear what was going on and just for my own benefit. But I do appreciate being given a little bit of an opportunity to speak at the same time. So thank you very much for your time.
And we appreciate the service that you provide for our city. We really do. So given that discussion, are we to the point for a motion and how do we want to proceed?
So, can I ask one more question, Sharon?
Yeah, of course.
So would you prefer that it go out as a public service announcement? Or do you like to hand out a flyer?
No, I think the PSAs are really effective in just letting people know it exists. When we've worked with cities and had that happen in the past, it's been a really effective way to get it out and has, seen positive results on the city's behalf, for the city's kind of public image and for us as well. And so that is, and we plan to additionally do other things like, digital ads and whatnot to try and spread the word as well.
Okay. And I don't see that as a huge problem because I know we do work with the chamber to do PSAs for new businesses that enter, and I think that would be within that spectrum of at least just initially getting word out, hey, we have a new business in town, and kind of at that. And then any further advertisement or anything like that would be the burden of the company. Does that sound?
For your information, council, this is a question that I get on Facebook at least once a month of what are the recycling options for Roosevelt City residents? I'm already fielding this from people who live here a lot. We already have an avenue to communicate information, and we do already engage in some business promotion every time a new business opens, or if a business is having some kind of special event, we'll share that information.
And I think that's how we need to approach this, so we can do that one-time initial thing, and then just whatever we would do for other businesses, we put that out there. Maybe, I know the paper is willing to do that in the paper and those types of things, and that's something that you would probably have to follow up with. But I feel like that's reasonable. I don't know how the council feels, but.
And honestly, do we really need the motion for this or just use an executive action?
I don't think we need a motion at this point because we're not really signing a contract or doing anything that we wouldn't do for any other new business.
One thing to just note is that we would be happy to do a contract at some point if the city felt like, hey, we want to push this further in the city and we're going to feel comfortable doing so. We need a city contract. We're happy to do that. We're happy to, we obviously submitted a bid on a previous RFP. We're happy. I don't know what the length of time that is valid. We're happy to do that again. So just for reference, no pressure on either way for us. We're happy to operate independent. When we started operating in Vernal, for example, we operated for about 6 months independent of the city, and then the city came in and we did a city contract. And so that's not, that's an option to take in the future.
Move forward, how it's been presented, and then we can address it in the future if the issue arises again. But for now, let's see what kind of interest we get in our community. And
well, there's no guarantee because then you say we need.
Yeah, we need 100. If it's pretty dang close, then we probably will move forward. But if it's far from that, then it'd be a little more difficult.
And we'll let you work with Lee and then obviously the other media outlets in our area to get the information out there and see what kind of response we get. And then ultimately, if we were to do a contract in the future, that would definitely have to come back before the council. We'd have to talk about that. But I think,
I would say if we ever got to that point, we'd have to make sure they follow the same standards.
I agree.
We have contracts, they'd have to be on the same footing. Yeah, that's only fair for them and to the citizens.
I agree 100%. So, okay. Well, thank you, Ryan, for being here tonight. For giving us this opportunity. So, all right, Alan, Chief Tucker.
Scott approached me, thought it'd be a good idea to pass these out, to give just an update every month on the crime statistics, Roosevelt.
I think we got them.
You got them already?
I got it last year.
Okay.
Mine's front and back, so
Okay. I kind of will, I'll explain a little bit of what it is. On the very top is the total call.
and that's just for the month.
This is for the month of October. So the total calls, that's a call that goes into dispatch, which is in Vernal. And they dispatch somebody out to. This number doesn't include, if somebody calls into the PD and they don't pull a case number. So that was 1,031. As far as accidents go, in the month of October, we had 18 citations, we had 2 fix-it tickets, we had 121 warnings, and we had 33 traffic actual tickets. As far as the crime goes, when you're doing your report, there's a big list and it has all the crimes. If that crime didn't happen this month, it's not listed. So for example, homicide, we didn't have anything in this, it's not listed on here. But I wanted to go over some of them. We have aggravated assault, we had 3. Amphetamine, possess, and sell, we had 6 and 3. Child abuse was 4. Along with child abuse comes child neglect, which is on the other page, we had 6. And those a lot of times come from DCFS, the referrals into us that we investigate. Disorderly conduct was 11. Domestic violence is 11. As far as DUIs, we had 7 drugs, and we had 3 alcohol. 9 intoxications. 9, some of the other big ones was theft, we had 13, and trespassing, we had 9. It also has warrant service. Those are 2 categories. So warrant service basically is your own jurisdiction, and warrant service another jurisdiction from out of our area. But I'd like any input on if you want any other type of stats, we can do whatever you want.
Do you keep track of like trends of anything that, maybe we or the citizens of Roosevelt might need to be aware of?
Absolutely, and we can do that. The program that we have just keeps all these stats. It's just a matter of asking it what you want and getting the results, and we
We'd just be curious if there's certain, because, that seems like a lot, but it's 33 a day incidents. So that seems like a lot of incidents per day. And obviously, some days will be more than others. I get that. That's just if you take 31 days in October divided into 1,031 incidents, that's 33 per day. Is that, I don't know if that's a lot, if that's, granted, that's not one officer, that's several officers.
The key number to look on here is total calls versus how many you have on patrol. So they're pushing right now about 100 calls a month per officer, which that is a heavy load. Heroin, for instance, population of 60,000, their officers are pushing 60 to 65 calls per month. So this is something we need to keep an eye on. If that starts to go up, we need to start looking at service levels and those types of things. But the amount of calls for service for officers and how many calls are spending and going on, if you look at a 60-40 ratio when it comes to law enforcement, 60% going to calls or handling calls and 40% doing your report writing and those types of things. So those are some things we need to look at and stay cognizant of going forward. If our call numbers start going up, we need to make sure we're adjusting service levels to accommodate what the police department needs.
What I like about this too is this sets a baseline for us at least, and this is something that I brought up to Scott about, where have we been, and as we start to make these changes in the police department, and we start to get the police department organized in the way it should be, I'd like to see how that trends. And so this is kind of the result of that, and I really appreciate it because this gives us a baseline as far as what it is. I don't know how it compares to last month or a year ago, but at least now we have a starting point and we can start seeing how those are trending and then react accordingly with personnel or equipment or whatever we need.
I think that's a big thing is to see the trends that will help you make better decisions, especially about personnel, like Scott said, with the 60-40 that we should be looking at. And I think that'll help. Plus, I think it helps the, sometimes seasons or certain times of the year, as you look at data, sometimes there's trends for certain things. And if we know that, we can be planned accordingly. So, yeah.
This year's going to be a little messed up with COVID. But,
no, I get that.
I don't know.
No one's been in
Pretty
trouble.
normal. So.
Hey, I think I'm standard probably.
Is there any other questions?
I really like this, I appreciate it.
Okay, welcome, Mayor.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time, thank you.
Thank you. HR position discussion. Should we put that to the end just in case we need to go to a closed session for that, or do you think we'll need to go?
I don't think we need to
Okay,
go, that's gonna be a whole separate thing.
okay,
So I think we're good. I'll talk about it, kind of how we got to where we're at.
okay.
And I'll introduce Derek and he can kind of
Sure.
go from there.
He's the better looking one, I can tell already.
So I've been in discussions with Mayor Bird and I've had this inclination, I want to bring someone in-house HR. Currently, our contract with Melissa and then some other positions within the city may allow us to go ahead and move forward with bringing in a full HR, including some other responsibilities. So I've talked to Grant, I've talked to the mayor extensively about this, and I want to move forward bringing in HR. I think this will resolve a lot of the issues we're currently having within these cities regarding litigation, policy issues, and those types of things. Having in-house HR is gonna really help us get to that next level of the city. So what I did, we have an interim HR manager. His name is Derek. I asked him to go out there and do an analysis on what it would cost us to hire someone in HR. So he went out and did all this. I'm gonna let him step up. And he's also created the posting position for it. I'll let him kind of elaborate on what he's done up to this point. He can introduce himself to you.
I'm Derek. Just a little introduction. I work for a tech company over out in Salt Lake City. Been with that company for about 3 years, but my HR career has been about 10 years of experience. And then beyond that, I've been a manager and doing some of that too. So as Scott has mentioned, he's asked me to kind of do an analysis for this HR manager position, which you guys can see is in one of your documents is the job description and duties to review. A lot of that is analysis I've done through SHRM, which is Society of Human Resources, and pulled some of that in there, as well as some of the experience that I've had in HR. There were 21 cities that I evaluated. 12 of those did not have HR positions, so that's I kind of separated those out. But 9 of those cities, I was able to pull HR equivalent positions and pull data from 2017 to 2020 for those years, and then created a chart there that you can see their base pay with benefits and their total. And then that averages down below between the 9 cities together to kind of give you that base analysis of what to bring in for an HR rep here at Roosevelt. As you can see, there's the 59K for base, 59K up to 68K, and then with benefits, 82,000 to 92,000 with benefits. Yes.
Sorry, so looking at this, you got the data from Transparent Utah, is that correct?
That is correct. So public records for employees are there, and so I went to each of the cities and was able to pull that. There is another website on there to know who's in those positions, and then pulling the data for those.
The only concern, the reason I ask is because I've looked at Transparent Utah and it's, the data is a little bit, depends on who's given the data to them, because I've looked at some of the, for example, I'm in education and some of the teachers show making $100,000 a year. I know for a fact that they only make 50. But the way the district puts the numbers in, and so I'm just curious how accurate those numbers actually are. I appreciate your efforts. I'm just curious about that.
Because I've looked at the website quite a bit too, and there is a separation. So a teacher that's making, showing that they're making $100,000 a year, probably 50,000 in salary, and then the other 50,000 is whatever contributions the state puts in and retirement.
But they don't
funds.
separate that for some of the, if you look at some of the teachers, it shows their total packages, or
Right.
total amount of 100, and they have a separate benefit, which is, anyway, it looks skewed, because I know for a fact, looking at the numbers, they're wrong. I'm just telling you, I understand, and I'm not trying to argue with you, I'm just curious how confident you are in those numbers.
Absolutely. I mean, I definitely, working for the private sector, we definitely have a third party that we go out, but being tech sector, that you're looking at those numbers and trying to compare. I do know, Salt Lake County, definitely bigger. They had positions there that they were posting, and it was around 68K they were looking to bring on an HR manager. Same thing with Richfield. They have another job posting on their job description. Their pay was from 62 to 68K. So that kind of validates the numbers in there. So yeah, that's great question.
Any other questions?
Yeah, so 2 of the cities have NAs for 2020. Do they fire their HR or get rid of the position?
There's no data there, but.
So, let me speak to that here real quick. So when you get to smaller cities, what that is HR is being used as another cap. Remember, we had John here and he had that HR cap. So that HR cap was with somebody else. So when you go to Utah and to pull this data, you can't pull it because it doesn't know who's actually performing that function. So the function is being performed in combination with something else. It could be your finance director, it could be your deputy recorder, it could be your recorder, or it could be somebody else within there that's carrying that cap. So the data, you can't pull that from that city. HR is being done, but we just don't know who in the city is doing that HR.
Isn't that where these other 12 positions would come in? Because I'm surprised that some of these that are pretty large
Yeah,
don't have a
exactly. So-
position at all. But
So the NAs down there, they have it. It's just somebody else within the city is doing it, and it just, they don't have the title of the HR.
Labeled that way.
It's not labeled that way. And so that's why you can't pull the data for those cities when you're looking up human resources or those types of things.
Go ahead, Dave.
So was that question, Vince, for the yellow boxes?
Yeah, for the yellow box.
Okay, so they had somebody in 2019 and then it went to somebody else in 2020. Is that what you're suggesting? Or am I missing the mark here?
That, or what has happened is it had some turnover and they just don't have that data in there. Or it's moved, or it's been moved to a different cap somewhere else.
Well, and I noticed too that some people don't post those numbers as quickly as they should.
Yeah, there's a delay.
Yeah.
On that, so.
I've seen years actually for some government entities, even local ones, not us, that will not update those numbers for 2 or 3 years, which is against state code, but unless somebody.
Utah's right, it's terrible about updating transparent, Utah's better, it's just their numbers are not always accurate, because sometimes they're given bad information based on what, I don't blame Transparent Utah, they just don't.
Absolutely.
They don't check the numbers, and whatever the entity sends the numbers, that's what they post. And like I said, I know they're wrong for some entities, regardless of that, and that's, but based on your comment, it sounds like the numbers are fairly within reason based on postings, right? And what they were offering.
Yep.
And so to follow up that a little bit, so it would combining the HR with other responsibilities of the city. The other position, and we'll get into that, kind of what I'm planning on combining it with. Right now, we're paying about $86,000 a year, not including benefits. If we go out and hire the HR, we're going to be somewhere between 60 and 68 on hire, plus benefits. So we're actually going to be saving the city around 20 to 25,000 by combining HR with another job function here and moving forward. And so that way we're not paying for $30,000 a year for contracted HR and the other responsibilities. I talked with the staff, and we're able to combine these two into one job description and have them do all of it.
Is that on here, because it just says HR on this?
No, and I'll talk to you more about that later. But right now, that's why it says at the bottom, other duties as assigned for right now. And then, we'll talk more about that in a little bit.
Sorry, that's why I was wondering if you, yeah, it's all right. Okay, so, anything else for us?
Nothing else.
Okay, we'll get back to that here in just a minute. So the police chief selection discussion, go ahead, if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Do you want me to talk about the process?
Maybe give the process of what you were thinking and, because, yeah.
So I've had discussions with the mayor kind of about the process on selecting our next police chief. So in administrative appointments such as mine or chiefs of police, they're kind of going a different direction. In interviews where you're doing a direct point, ask a question, and then they respond back, that limits panels on what they can ask an individual. So the process I would like to do is a two-phase process, one consisting of department heads and then one consisting of mayor and council. Phase one, basically the candidate would show up, they would list 5 topics, the candidate would have a half hour to prepare, he gets to pick 4. The candidate comes in, this pretty much what this does is, it's called a critical conversation versus an interview. This allows an individual to interact with the board and have a conversation versus an ask question, response answer. During this process, so you've got to just make sure it's focused on the topic and you don't go outside of the topic. This gives you a little bit more leeway to ask questions on those topics and those types of things. Phase one, it's really designed to focus on how does that individual interact with department heads within the city. It's not just generally just content, but how are they able to interact with public works, the city manager, the assistant city manager, those types of things. Can you carry on a conversation and have critical discussions about topics we're having in our city? So that is phase one of the process. Phase two would then be going in front of your council, and it would be the same format. And you guys would, you'd pick your own topics that you want to talk about, and then you'd be open to talk about those topics during that session with that candidate. The nice thing about this structure is now you can actually ask questions about that topic, follow-up questions, do those types of things, and you're not in a, here's the question, you get an answer back and it's done. This makes a candidate actually interact with everybody in the room, because you want someone to be able to interact and get along and communicate with each and every one of us. So that's a process I would like to come forward for, and I'll let JR kind of go from there.
So we talked to a few different people on this. I'm not 100% sold on that process, but I am okay with moving forward. One of the things I want to make sure is the council can observe if we do the phase one, phase two, whatever it is, we have just the department heads first, then the council. I know with the city manager, we have the department heads and the council all together in one room, which I don't know, we can discuss that, but at least if we do separate that, I would want it zoomed or something like that, so the council could at least, they wouldn't participate, but they could observe and see how that works.
So would phase one be all candidates and that we've chosen to interview, and phase two also be all candidates, or would it be reduced by department heads and the council?
Well, no. And that's what I want to make sure is this is not a department head decision. This is a city.
Right.
This is up to whoever the mayor wants. So this is the mayor's appointment to bring.
Okay.
So this is his process. So this is whoever he wants to move through the process. So we're really, the department heads are guests within this process. And, you know, if he just chooses to include the department heads in this process, that's up to him. It's the mayor's job to bring you guys the appointments, and whatever process he decides to get them to appointment is up to the mayor to get them there.
And I'm totally okay with the process that's been suggested by Scott. I just want to make sure that we're involved in both phases, so we can observe at least if that's the way we go. Derek, do you have any? I mean, you've probably been through hiring, firing. We're not firing anybody. we can't afford to. But hiring processes, I mean, have you seen this before? And
As long as you're consistent across the board with all candidates, that's kind of key on your process on how that is, and then obviously staying away from any protected class and information. Those are kind of the.
Well, one of the things I was thinking of putting at least as, one of the questions that, I don't know if this is a protected class, but I think it definitely needs to be known their political affiliation. Before they're even considered. Is that
I forgot to warn you about this, Derek.
No? I'm joking. Absolutely, and we would. Does anybody, I mean, I felt like the process that we took with the city manager was pretty, once we got going on it, and we got the applications back, it worked pretty well. I don't know how much different it'd be to separate those two groups and have the different interaction with just the department heads and then just the city council. Maybe we would see a little bit different side of somebody in a little more relaxed environment. I just don't know. I don't think it's set in stone. I'm just wondering if anybody has any preference one way or the other on that.
I like the way that he suggested, just because we can, I mean, the interviews we did with Scott and the other applicants for his position, it took a whole hour, sometimes more than that. And this gives a half hour, you say?
So basically, you can set the parameters to however you want to set it up.
It gives them a half hour to prepare.
Oh, half hour.
Yeah, so they get it, so basically,
Right,
you
right.
pick, so the department heads will pick their topics, or whatever the mayor wants us to talk about, the department heads, and then you guys.
I think the department heads come up with their own. I mean, we'll have our own set of questions, obviously, and the department heads should have things that are pertinent that we wouldn't know about to their departments and interaction. I know, Chief Rockwood, we talked about this with Chief Tucker, the communication, those types of things. So as we're looking at the departments are gonna, they've dealt with those things, and so they're gonna have different questions than we're gonna have.
Exactly.
So.
And so so basically, how I've seen it performed before is they get a half hour. The reason for that is they gotta be able to prepare like this,
Right.
and they have to do it on 4 to 5 topics. Then they come in and you can set the time to whatever you want it to be. If you want 20 minutes a question, you want 15 minutes per topic, but you've got to be consistent across the board. So when you come in, you're gonna, with this candidate, it's gonna be 20 minutes. You're gonna give him available of 20 minutes. So if he comes in and talks to you for 2 minutes and says he's done, then you can move to the next question. But that's not a conversation you probably want to be having. But that's kind of the process that it really determines how much you want on each topic. I mean, you could even say on this topic, we want 20 minutes, on this topic, we want a little bit more time. So that's up to you in the process you guys, or the mayor decides to set for it.
I think we can proceed kind of like what you're saying. One thing that I want to make sure of is, or ask the council about, we've had 28 applicants so far. We need to start getting going on that. We don't want to wait around any longer. We need to get going on that. What I would like to know from the council is how much, I mean, we can send all the applications to you if you like. Ultimately, I would like to, we've got to narrow that pool down to a handful. I'm guessing my question is once, when we start narrowing that pool down, how many are we going to narrow it to? Is it going to be 3 applicants? Is it going to be 5 that we interview? How are we going to narrow that? I mean, how many do we want to end up with to interview? Ultimately, if we don't find the right person within those 3 or 5 or however many we decide, we can open that back up to the pool and then interview more of those. But personally, I'd like, I mean, especially if we do this process, we have 5 candidates, an hour each candidate or something like that. That's a long.
I would knock it down to your top 3.
So
your top 3 candidates.
Are you comfortable if we narrow it down without having any interviews? Now, you know what we could possibly do is narrow it down to 5 or 6, have a phone interview or a quick just phone interview, and then narrow it down to the 3 that actually come in person.
That would be fine too if you guys wanted to, if that's what you
I
want.
just want to make sure that we're all in agreement that we get it down to a certain number before we start the interviews. To interview 28 individuals is going to be very difficult. We already set some preferences and things like that. If you guys would like those, I know you've expressed interest in seeing all of the candidates. If you'd like those, we can send those out to you.
Real quick, I've already pulled 2 applicants out. They didn't meet minimum qualifications. They weren't P certified. They had no law enforcement experience. So those were immediately removed, and then an email was sent saying you did not meet minimum qualifications.
Is that what they needed just to qualify for their next unemployment?
I don't know, but I had Lee review that with me. We went
I'm
over
sorry,
and
Grant.
they didn't meet.
He's cringing over there like, I wish I had this shut up.
So 2 of them have already been pulled. They're, they have to post and you're out for them. So it doesn't even make sense for them to come to the
I would
process.
just recommend to do the 5 or 6, maybe do the phone interview and get it down to the 3, and then we can be involved in the 3. I think that's a fair process. I don't want to leave anyone out, so I think it's better to have the, 6 and do some sort of phone, Zoom interview, whichever, and then break it down to 3 in person, I think.
Okay.
I'm supportive of that.
Sounds good.
And although I want to see the list, I just want to see who's applied. I want to see, if there's any that I see that are like, wow, this guy looks awesome, and Mrs. Mark, I'd just like to just know why, but I'm not gonna try to push one way or another, because I don't have any, like, there's no outsiders or anyone that I know that's applied that I know well.
So Mayor, would you like me to have Lee send all those packets out to?
Yeah, if you want to digitally send it to them, if you want to look through it. If not, ultimately, if you do have strong feelings about 1 or 2 candidates, let us know, and then we'll try to accommodate and make sure that they're at least in the top 6. Also with your justification of why they're there too, not because they're your best friends.
So let's do this, on your schedule then, do you want to get us some dates where we can start calling and setting up these phone interviews? And then also we'll need a list of questions that you're gonna ask and make sure we're standardized the phone interview questions. And then I can get that over to Derek, just have him formalize that, put it together. Also have Derek start formalizing the process for phase 1, phase 2, get that in written and get that and make sure you guys are all on board with, those topics. I'll get the department heads, we'll pick the topics that the department heads want to do. Mayor and council decide on what 5 topics you guys want to do. We'll get that all in a document. I'll get it out to you guys for approval in the process to move forward with those.
So if anybody on the council then has a question or something that they feel strongly about, submit those to myself or Lee. Maybe just carbon copy Scott and Lee and I on those. Submit them and we'll compile a list. As far as the date goes, how soon do you think we can? I would say 4 weeks.
I think that depends on you, because a lot of that's going to depend on how quick we get. Oh, I don't think we set a time, because it depends on how quick we get to those phone interviews.
Well, and if we do the 6 phone interviews, that's not going to take a long time. I'll bet within 2 weeks we can have the phone interviews done.
Okay.
My guess is,
and we can spread it out a little bit. We don't need to do all the candidates in one day. If you guys don't want to do a great big long day of doing it, and you want to spread it out a little bit, it's 3 candidates. We can do one day, 1 another day, 2 one day, or push it so you guys aren't feeling like, it's just because when you do 3 in a day and it's 3 hours long, everything kind of gets jumbled together.
so let's just, as far as the deadline goes, let's do within 2 weeks. Let's have it narrowed down to where we're doing the top 6 phone interviews. And then we can start to plan based on that. So that'll, let's say no longer than 2 weeks after that. So no longer than by our next meeting should we be having those interviews, which is on the 15th. And that'll give us some deadlines to meet.
Okay.
And then if we find an appropriate candidate at that point, then in our January meeting, we could do an appointment. I don't think we ought to push it any further than that, even though Alan's doing a really good job. I mean, I don't think we're under the gun, but this is something that we definitely need to get taken care of and get moving forward with. So does everybody feel like that's reasonable? January, have an appointment made?
Yeah, so would it be inappropriate to post on the city Facebook page, if you were interviewing an individual for police, chief of police, what question would you ask? To get some input from the citizens, and we could we might get some really great ideas that's really important to the citizens to be able to integrate into the interview process.
Or what have been your concerns? What are some things that we need to be
Not even a
looking at?
question, maybe topics. So that way you have your topics. And
Well, question or topic, so that they could generate it as a, I'd ask them this, or I'd ask them, you know,
That's
this or
something that
that.
we could definitely get out on Facebook and say, hey, we're looking to hire a new police chief. We're going through the interview process. Are there any specific topics or things that you are interested in as members of the community? Or that are concerning to you? I don't know.
95% says.
Derek, do you have any concerns with any of that, feedback in the process?
Say that again?
Concerns with getting questions or feedback from the process from the citizens?
I'm concerned about the answers.
Well, but it might be telling. I mean, like, okay.
Is that okay?
I don't see a problem with it as long as you're consistent. You have all that done before you start any of the interviews, and then you're consistent throughout the interviewing process. I'm okay with it.
I almost feel like it may be poke in the eye to previous administration. I wouldn't want it to turn out that way. Does that make sense?
I can see that going that way too.
So I think I don't know. I'm just trying to play both sides of the coin.
Let the citizens feel like they have a hand.
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
I'd say you guys are elected officials, and the people who elected you for that purpose and for that reason. And I would support you guys in making those decisions. There's a lot of input that could come in there that's my opinion.
It may not be productive. That's my fear. It would be more dividing than productive. So maybe just go to your constituents and ask them personally if I think that might be a better approach.
My constituents in the whole city, since we're not.
You better
So
get out there and knock on doors.
So it's okay for me to go door to door, but it's not okay to put it on Facebook, is what you're saying.
Because people sit behind a computer and their keyboard and they write some pretty mean things that's available to everyone to read, which it's a hard situation.
I can see both sides of it. I can see both sides of that
I'm not
coin.
saying it's not a good idea.
And I'll here's my other concern with it right now, with other things we have going on in that department. I don't necessarily know if now would be the time
To give them
do
a
that.
platform.
I think timing has to do with that right now, and I don't think the timing may not be appropriate right now.
That's a good point, just because it would create a platform for some of that stuff to be, it could get ugly.
So that stuff, we have some open-ended stuff that needs to be taken care of, and I can see that's going down a rabbit hole that we can't get out of with kind of going that way.
It's definitely, I like the community involvement, but yeah. And it doesn't mean no, it just means maybe we'll look at that and look further and see.
One thing I would say is, as a councilman, then I think if you had a Facebook account and you wanted to say, hey, we're looking to hire a new chief and I'm interested in what you guys want to see, in our new chief, I think people would probably respond to that.
Another option you have with a Facebook post, just for your information, is that we can post a poll. We can only do 2 options. We can't have like a massive list of options. Facebook has eliminated that, as they often do with good features. But we can post polls with like 2 things of like, hey, we're hiring a new police chief. Of these 2 things, what matters most to you, the residents? And they can select, well, of this comparison, I don't know what those topics would be, but if there is something that stands out to you that says, I really want to know, do you care more about one of these things than the other, then you can allow people to have their input that way.
Have Facebook.
Would you rather a good shot
Who's that?
or run fast? Something like that.
So
That is an option that exists.
it's some things we can look at. So. All right, so we kind of got the data set to go forward that way. We kind of got the processes going forward, some things we need to work out on the department side and there and council side, and I think we just push forward for that deadline in the appointment by January.
Awesome. So surplus sale notification.
I'll talk about it too over here. So we have a lot of surplus property in the building, computers, those types of things that are just sitting around. We've set, November 30th, it'll be a Monday, it'll be after, Thanksgiving. So all the old furniture, computers, minus hard drives, those have been stripped out, so it'll be the graphics card, motherboard, those types of things in there. But they'll be open and available for anyone in the city to come and purchase. That has been posted and, that's been posted correct on our account, so anyone in the public will have access to come in and purchase any of those items. We've got some furniture desks, some older chairs, those types of things that it's time for them to go. If we don't get rid of them, they'll probably just go down to the landfill. Real quick, Aaron, in the golf course, we just did one up there with some of their equipment. That surplus sale just pulled in about $2,000 in surplus property. It was just sitting outside collecting dust. So that property has been surplus. We've now got that money documented and back in the account. We're keeping some of our money from some older equipment that we're just not using anymore. So it'll be available for all, and that's kind of that notice on that.
Thank you. There was only one comment from a citizen that was just suggesting that we put those surplus items. What was that website again? I can't remember.
Governmentsurplus.com.
Yeah, he was mentioning that would might be a good spot for some of that. And I mentioned to him, we talked about that this morning in the department head meeting. I mentioned to him that the concern of, hey, every little piece that we put on there, I don't know. But I think moving forward, that's definitely a website that we want to use, especially for the larger audience.
So
To get it out there at a bigger audience, I guess. Okay, purchase orders and purchase orders went down. Does anybody have any questions on the purchase orders tonight?
No. I move we approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Busenbarg. I'll second, and a second by Councilman Baird. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Purchase orders are approved. Reports from standing committees. Councilman Allen, do you have anything for us tonight?
Just really briefly with our Parks and Rec meeting, there wasn't a lot. There's not a lot of events that we're planning for Winterfest. A lot of them have been canceled, but there's a lot of groups. So it's the spread out stuff. We talked about the improvements on the skating rink or moving it and trying to purchase something that we could put up there by the soccer fields. And that sounded pretty cool. Pickleball is something that's taken off. We want to try to do more of that and promote it. So whatever we can, do that as a Winterfest activity.
Can I comment on that?
Yeah.
So I was talking with some members in our community. I don't know if anybody's aware, but they went and painted, our Parks and Rec committee got together, they went and painted pickleball lines on all the old tennis courts. And so you can play pickleball there now. But there's quite a few people that are taking a lot of interest in it, so they're talking about a tournament at some point and those types of things. If you haven't played pickleball, it's really fun. If you're old and getting heavy like me, you don't have to run quite as much as in tennis. And it's like in between tennis and ping pong. So it's kind of an in between type thing. It's a lot of fun. So anyway, and that's an idea that they had. So it's just nice to see the Parks and Rec committee, coming with those ideas.
Yeah, they do a great job. Talked a little bit about the park that's proposed and going forward, I think, behind the hospital. And some grants that have been, we tried to get some money for some benches and things like that. Some improvements and along that line. But it's a pretty short meeting this time, all over Zoom, so that's pretty much it. Top of my head.
And I don't know how much to say yet because I'm not sure if the hospital has that property, but there's potential of 14 acres that they'll acquire and then donate that to Roosevelt City for a nature park. And we're looking at different options there. So just, it'll be kind of neat for our community.
There was some questions about the status of the fields that were planning on building, and I didn't have a
baseball fields.
Yeah.
Yeah. We need to get rolling on that. That's going to be a
I just said it, with the current atmosphere, it's not really a great time to go and fundraise and ask for money. And who knows when that's going to pick up. The economy got to improve a lot. And that's really going to drive that going forward.
We're trying to finalize that property with the pool or the library as well. And I think once that's said and done, the property's done, I think the next step is to get a design. As soon as we get a design, then we can see what the interest is in the community or how well received that is. And then it might surprise us the response we get, but then with the CIP funds or, grants that we can acquire for that, that might be a little more difficult. But I think we get it to that point definitely and then present it to the community and see what kind of response. So, and we're still tied up with CID. They need to, anyway, there's a lien on property, but long story short, we're in the process of making sure that transaction is complete. So, anything else for us?
That's all.
Councilman Barrett, do you have anything for us? Not tonight. Okay, Councilman Luzenmark? No. Councilman White?
One thing to report from ULCT board meeting yesterday, Kurt Mauer got appointed to the Joint Highway Committee board on that, so we'll have a representative here on that committee. Should be helpful to us. The other things we talked about, they had what's called the Love, Listen, Lead initiative, which they had a company research what people's perception of police force was, and they came out with some of those preliminary reports, but it was not final yet. They didn't want us to give details, but it was just interesting how perception, depending on your race or ethnicity or those kind of things, it changes quite a bit what your perception of if the police are doing a good job or if they're there to help you or they're actually out to get you or things like that. But anyway, they're working on that, just trying to figure out a way better to help the police be more favorably viewed in the public eye, especially in some areas.
Councilman Riley?
Anything?
Okay. Do we need to go into closed session for personnel? Okay. Let's, do you have anything else for us, Scott?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. Then I would entertain a motion to go into closed session and then come out of closed session.
I'll move to go to closed session to talk about personnel and come back out of closed session.
Okay. Motion by Roosevelt and second by Councilman Allen, all in favor?
Aye.
No roll call vote, so Councilman Riley?
Aye.
Councilman White?
Aye.
Councilman Roosevelt?
Aye.
Baird? Aye. Aye. Let's take a 2-minute recess. All right, who bet on, so we'll have a session now. We can go out those doors and see if anybody else is here. So we need to make a couple of motions on some personnel things.
Move that we follow the recommendations, list contract as HR and place out with Derek's contract for doing the HR until we get an HR person in place.
Okay, so I will just, I can
Paraphrase and
paraphrase that just a little bit. So the motion would be to move forward with terminating the contract with Melissa, entering into an interim contract with Derek at the same exact rate, and ultimately hiring a full-time HR person.
That will also fill the payroll position.
Yeah.
We gotta finish the Vicky stuff.
Yeah. So, yeah. Okay. So do we have a second on that? And you have the motion correct?
It was my motion in case.
I'll second. So we have a Rosenbach and then a second by Councilman Baird. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Is there anything else that we need to discuss tonight? We would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. We'll consider ourselves adjourned. Thank you all.
Hey, Ryan.
All right.